Hi, welcome back to the channel. This video is the next in a series looking at the construction of an extension, and today's video we're looking at the construction of the rear patio. So this is the paved area that will sit directly outside of the extension where the sliding doors will open out until. So we can see the start of the construction here. Now you can see that the floor level of the house is above the level of the garden. So this has been dug down so that we can make sure that everything is perfectly level. So what we're doing here is using some of the bricks, some of the debris that we took when we demolished the back end of the extension, the old extension. We've kept those bricks and now we're using them as hardcore as a base for the new patio. So this is recycling. It's a good idea. It helps keep your costs down because it means that not only do you not have to pay for those bricks to be taken away, but also you don't have to pay for as much of the hardcore that you need to use underneath the patio. So it's a good idea. Make sure your builder does that. So literally we're just throwing down all of the old bricks onto the surface that we've got here, and then we will level this off, and then we will start to build up the sub base before we lay the patio later in the video. So this is just a case of laying out all of the old rubble, all the old bricks. So one of the critical things when you are doing the patio is to make sure that all of the drainage has been done before you lay the final finish. So what we're doing here is just preparing the ground for the pipework. If you've watched the previous video, you'll have seen that we installed a soakaway about 5 meters from the house in compliance with building regs. And what we're doing now is laying pipes that will run from the extension through to that soakaway. So we've got to make sure that there's a sufficient fall on the pipe. So we're just measuring here to make sure that we've got fall, that the water will run down those pipes and into the soakaway. So we're just laying all that, making sure it's all correct before we send it home and finish it and start putting the concrete and the flagstones on the top. So really important job to make sure that everything's been laid in terms of the drainage before you put the patio down, because you don't want to be digging the patio up anytime in the future to sort out any of the drainage problems. So you can see the pipe here is on the left, and we're just making sure that we do have that correct fall. So we're just digging out the channel here, putting the pipes in, making sure everything's done and dusted. So the soakaway is just to the left-hand side of the screen here. You can see that we've started putting sand down on top of the hardcore, on top of the bricks. So it's starting to become more of a level surface. We will have a fall on the patio, so the patio will fall away from the property so that when it rains, water will move towards the grass, towards the garden, rather than back towards the house or just sitting in pools. So you've got to make sure that you've got a slight fall, obviously not too much because you don't want it to feel like it's a slope, but you do want some fall to take water away. So it's just a case now of building up the layer of sand on top of the hardcore, and then we will whack that down using a wacker plate. So we just jump forward. Here we are with the wacker plate. So we're just making sure this is all very compact and all nice and level and flat, so that we've got no gaps, no air breaks, nothing in there that's going to cause movement in the future. So we'll whack this down. We'll then put some more sand on top of it. We'll whack it again, and that makes sure that everything then is a very solid base for us to lay the concrete and the flags on top of, so that we don't get any movement at any point in the future. So jumping forward now, we have laid all of the concrete down. So we're just putting a new layer down underneath each slab to make sure that it adheres and nice and easy to fit to. So we've whacked it all down, and now we're just putting a layer down underneath each slab. So that means that when we hit the slab down into place, it will be nice and firm. This is a dry mix, as you can see. It's not wet, it's not wet concrete that we're pouring, it's a dry mix. So we'll put this down, and then each individual flag will be put down. We've got spacers, so very similar process to laying tiles. If you've been involved in that, where you've got spacers in between each tile, we've done the same here. You can see the red spacers sticking upright in between each of the individual tiles, and that enables us to be able to do some grouting later, so we can get some nice clean straight grout lines. So here we are mixing up the concrete, but it's a very dry mix. As you can see, it's not a wet mix, pour concrete, very dry. So we're mixing up the sand and cement here to give us a nice solid. So you've seen already that we have laid a complete surface, so we've already got a full layer down, and what we're doing is just putting some under each individual slab to make sure that it's got something to suck into and that it fits nice and tight, and when we hammer it into place we'll have a perfectly level surface. So just easy way of doing the final finish. So just a case of transporting this backwards and forwards. The weather's very nice today, so easy to do this job, and this will be all set and finished overnight, so it'll be all done and able to walk on tomorrow. So just a case of laying each of these slabs now in a very similar way to you would lay a floor internally. So if you were doing a tiled floor in a kitchen or a bathroom, very similar to that from this point. You can see the tiles here. They're very similar to the type of tiles that you have for bathrooms and kitchens, just a lot bigger, cover a much bigger area, which is great because it means that you've got less grout lines. So it's just a case of laying out all of these individual slabs and making sure all the time that we've got the right levels and that we've got the fall that we're looking for, to make sure that water moves away from the house rather than pooling at the property itself or at the doors. So nice, easy layout. Once you've done your prep work, you've made sure that you've got your base perfectly flat and level, this part of the job should be relatively easy and straightforward. So not too many cuts in these tiles because we've got a big area to deal with, so we're laying a lot of full length tiles, so it makes it a much quicker job rather than having to cut a lot away. So pretty straightforward this part here. It's literally just a case of putting down the sand cement mix and then putting the flags on top of that and building it all up. So you can see that he's putting a layer out, getting it all prepared, letting it air out, make sure that everything is nice and dry and ready. So just prodding that with a garden fork just to make sure there's no air pockets or any gaps or anything that would cause movement any point in the future, because we want this patio to be rock solid, to never move. We don't want any of the flags starting to lift or crack or bevel because we've got air pockets or areas underneath that aren't completely packed in. So we should be okay because we've done all the whacking plate and we've got our levels. We just got to make sure as you go along that nothing changes, that not suddenly any movements. You can see here we've got the spirit level on it, making sure that there is that fall, that we've got a slight fall away from the property so that all the water will be encouraged to run away and not to pool, because there's nothing worse than having a new patio and you go out and you suddenly find that it's got large puddles in the middle of the patio because a couple of the flags have been laid at a different level, slightly lower or maybe just on a slight angle. We've got to make sure that it's all one continuous smooth level running away from the property. So you can see the size of the slabs here, pretty big but easy to fit because they're so large, but it does mean they have to be absolutely spot on with your levels, because they will tell you as soon as you place them down if there's any imperfections. You'll be able to see if this patio is not perfectly flat because these slabs can't be adjusted. Because they're so big, it does need to be completely level or you will notice it immediately with the naked eye. So you can see here we've done the prep work, we're taking over the large slab, fitting it into place, and that's basically how this whole patio will be constructed from here. So just jumping forward a little, that slab is now in place and just making sure that we've got everything perfect, that the gap is the same as it is with all of the other slabs. It's all uniform, all nicely neat and looking perfect. So it's relatively time consuming to make sure each individual slab is perfectly level. And that's why we put a little bit of build up of the sand cement mix beneath it, because it then gives you a little bit of play. You can hit it with the mallet like we're doing here if there's anywhere where it needs to go up or down, maybe slightly left or right or whatever it might be. If you've got the sand cement mix underneath it, then you've got the ability to play around with the slab slightly, so you've got a little bit of give. If you've got 2 or 3 mil of the sand cement underneath it, you can do that. Once it's all completely whacked down and solid, it's very difficult to move it. So if you've got a millimetre imperfection in between the slabs, you can't do anything with it. So you can see here, we're playing with each slab, making sure that it's entirely level. Put the spirit level on it every single time, both left and right, to make sure that it's all completely level before you send it home. So it does take a bit of time to make sure you get it right, but it's worth it because this patio hopefully will be down for the next 20 or 30 years. So you don't really want to see any movements or any imperfections going forward, because it spoils the look. As you look out from your brand new extension onto the garden, the patio is the first thing that catches your eye, and you will notice any imperfections in the levels. So here we are jumping forward to the grouting stage. So all of the slabs have now been laid, everything is now done, and now it's a case of doing the grouting. Very similar job to the grouting that you would do in a bathroom or a kitchen. So we've got the grout in the bucket and we're feeding it into the gaps between each of the stones, and then just making sure that it's all completely filled in and there's plenty on there. We can wash off any residue, any extra, so you can see here that it's bleeding out onto the stones themselves. That's not a problem, that can be washed away later. We've got to make sure that there's enough grout in between each stone initially. So here's the fully finished patio. So we've now laid all of the slabs, all the grouting's done, everything's dried up. You can see it looks very modern and neat. Once we get the sliding doors in, this will really be a very modern addition to this new extension. Really works well. You can see the patio furniture we put on just for the purposes of this video all starting to take shape and looks a lot better than it did if you've been watching this series of videos and saw what this used to look like before we started the work. So hopefully this series has been useful for you. If it has, please give me a thumbs up and subscribe for more videos like this and other videos about property. Thank you for watching, and I will see you on the next video.